Good evening. Good evening. And welcome to tonight's event, Experiencing Mental Health for Black Men. I am Eric Capehart, and some of you may know me as Eric the Counselor. I am one-third of the creators and founders of Experience Mental Health Incorporated. And at Experience Mental Health Incorporated, we are all about creating fun and engaging mental health content to help people of African descent or Black Americans experience better or improved mental health, and that's why we are here tonight. If you are joining us live, we will invite you to subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate all of you who have already subscribed to our channel, and if you are here with us for the first time tonight, we want to invite you to subscribe so that you can get this content, and you can also get our weekly podcast, Experiencing Mental Health, the podcast that comes out every Thursday. So here's a place for you to come right here on our YouTube channel. Now, it's no secret that Black men are incarcerated at higher rates than any demographic in the nation. And even with incarceration rates on the decline, Black men are still especially likely to be incarcerated. Now, for the past 3 months, Experience Mental Health, we have gathered Black men to talk about and discuss different mental health topics. And tonight we're going to be talking about incarceration and the impact it has on those who have been formerly incarcerated. All right? And so tonight we will hear from men who have all had their own experience with incarceration. And tonight they're here to tell us about how their mental health was impacted both while they were in and now that they are out. If you have any questions, I'm going to be joining you guys in the chat. So if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat. If you have any feedback that you'd like to share with us, I'll be checking the chat and I'll be adding that to the conversation tonight. We have a great guest, we have a great panel, and a great host. And now I'm going to turn it over to our partner, Ron Johnson.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are excited about this moment. I have to say that for each one of these men that's going to be here with us, I know them all personally, and I have to say they are all from the team of greatness. And I can say the best is yet to come. You haven't seen anything yet, so don't change that channel. Don't leave that site, because I'm telling you, you are in for a treat tonight. We're going to be asking some questions that I'm sure you've probably had these questions to come to your desk or come to your phone, or someone has experienced it, including myself. And I'm going to introduce each person, and I'm going to let them take about 2 minutes to kind of tell us their story. But first, I'm going to tell you, we have to my right, we have Robert Sherrill.
Thank you for
having me. And also zooming in with us, we have Omari Booker. Say hi, Omari. Hi, Omari. And to my left here, we have Mr. Tay McGee. Say hi, Tay.
What's happening?
And I am Ron Johnson, your host, and I am really excited about this. So we're going to just go ahead on and dive right in. And that first question is, we'll start with you, Omari, and just ask you to give us, what is your story?
And thank you for having me. I'm grateful for these spaces that are having these conversations. And my story with mental health and incarceration both started relatively young. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 19, so I already was kind of dealing with a mental health diagnosis. And then my first kind of brushes with incarceration came a couple of years after, or about a year or two after that. So yeah, I mean, it's something that I dealt with for a long time. I think it was a challenge because initially just having the mental health diagnosis was something to kind of a hurdle to get over. And then there's some added stigma once you've been incarcerated, then you get out and you're trying to sort of battle that. But yeah, I've been grateful for the community support and people that have kind of embraced me when I came back. And today, artwork, that's my kind of daily thing. That's what I do for passion, also for a living, and it's a big part of my mental health. Therapy too, yeah, just kind of having an outlet to get some of those feelings and emotions out. So I'm grateful to be here. That's kind of the short version, but I think we all have stories that 2 minutes can't can't nearly hold. So, so I'm looking forward. I will pass it to the next brother. I'm glad to be here with you all.
Well, thank you so much. Now we'll go to Rob and share with us, what is your story, Rob?
Well, you know, Nashville native, born and raised in Dodge City. You know, chose kind of an aberrant path growing up. Kind of, you know, went along with the crowd, which is kind of what you do when you're in, you know, in an environment. You kind of just go with what's popular and what's accepted, because we all like to be accepted, right? To some degree, if we're honest. I ended up, you know, just getting heavily involved in the streets, getting addicted to drugs, just going through the things that happen when you're in the streets, like, you know, losing your friends, joining gangs, things of that nature. I ended up going to federal prison and doing 5 years. And, you know, prior to me going, you know, I started to have anxiety attacks real bad, you know, and I was running back and forth to the hospital all the time. I used to smoke a lot of marijuana, and it started to freak me out. So I used to run back and forth to the hospital, so much so I stopped smoking, and I was still having them. And every now and then, even now, I still have anxiety attacks, right? And I've been diagnosed with that, but I would just refuse it. So I've found ways to deal with them myself that works for me. Like Amari said, he paints, and I just take a second to kind of breathe and, you know, talk myself down. And I just take a second to kind of breathe and, you know, talk myself down and things of that nature. Still finding ways to deal with that, but prison kind of made it worse with me being kind of stuck in one spot, really with no chill, because you're always, you know, on your toes, because things are happening in there that you can't control, which plays into the whole anxiety thing. But yeah, that's my story. Got out and, you know, started my business, and the rest is history. So just in 2 minutes, kind of in a nutshell, that's what I got.
Hey, it's hard to tell a life story after having the experiences I'm sure that we all have had, but
Thanks.
we're going to do the best that we can. So audience, you guys, please bear with us. We're going to do the best that we can. But Mr. McGee, can you tell us, what's your story?
So my story, a lot similar to everybody's here. You know, grew up Grand Rapids, Michigan. Came down here when I was about 13 years old. You know, in my neighborhood, you know, we dealt with a lot of the activities that you see a lot of young males dealing with today. So, you know, drugs, crime, violence, domestic violence within the home, and so on and so on. You know, it wasn't a lot of good communication, a lot of guidance for us, me and my siblings, nor for my mother. So some of those type of, you know, deficits that she might experience fell on us. You know, back in those days, there wasn't no internet. So it was believed that the North was ahead of the South. So my mother brought us down here to the South thinking like, you know, it's gonna be slower, it's gonna be easier for her to get involved, we can change our life. But we came down here with no plan, no guidance. So a lot of that caused for us to get involved in the same activities, those same experience, those same crimes. So doing that eventually got me in juvenile. From juvenile, came back out, still no good guidance, still no good. So eventually that wound me up to going to prison. From prison, I stayed in there a little less than 4 years. Came out of prison, and I remember right before I got out of prison, a guy said to me, he said, "What do you plan on doing when you get out?" And I was like, you know, I had a little plan in my mind. He said, "Whatever that plan is somebody in here for that same plan today. So keep that in mind, right?" Me thinking I'm exempt or it ain't gonna happen to me, I get out, I try to implement, I'm like, look, I'm gonna work, but then I'm gonna hustle later. You know, I didn't necessarily get caught for the hustling, but some of the things that the hustling involved got me caught up again. Less than a year later, I found myself right back in prison. So getting out the next time, it was just where, you know, I wanted to do something that didn't always wound me back up in trouble. I wanted to do something productive. I wanted to be a greater role model that I didn't see. You know, I wanted to see a professional black male who looked like me, who dressed like me, who listened to the same music as I did. So since I didn't see it, I felt like I should create it. And eventually I met this guy named Ron Johnson, and the rest of the story you'll hear through this rest of this interview because we only got 2 minutes, so, you know.
All right, y'all. So that leaves me, last but not least, to just kind of tell you a brief. I'm going to put myself on the clock because it means a lot to me to try and stay as close to time as I can. So I'm Ron Johnson. I am, native of Memphis, Tennessee, the fifth of 10 boys. Grew up in the Goodwill Village, for those of y'all who are watching down in Memphis, Tennessee, or WDIA apartments over there in the projects. And one of the things that I can say is I can't use the excuse of not having mama and dad, and I don't really call it an excuse. It's just what it is for a lot of young black men and a lot of young females that are African American. But I had my mom and my dad. They both were two of the heroes that I had in my life. But I decided to choose to do some of the things that I did. But being an athlete is what I think was part of the saving grace. And having that mama praying in the closet and grandmama praying for me and daddy being that deacon preaching and praying for me all at the same time. But I found myself caught up after I had finished college and spent 4 years in federal prison. I really thought without a shadow of a doubt that this was going to be a permanent home if I didn't change the way I was thinking. So during that time that I was there, I really truly decided to change my mind, and that is what I have committed my life to, is helping others find ways to change the way they think about things, because if you do that, you can change things. And so therefore, that's what I've committed myself to. But before all of that, that life of drugs and crimes and those types of things was something that I found myself engaged and involved in. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But we're going to also talk about how mental health affects us, because we didn't understand what mental health is. And so I'm going to ask this question right here again. Another question is, when you think about mental health, what comes to mind, Brother Rob?
It's a topic that, is very foreign. I mean, with me growing up and things of that nature, we didn't really hear about mental health and illnesses and things like that. But you hear more in the African American community, ADHD and things of that nature, right? And they quick to diagnose our African American boys with that disease or whatever. But when it's real. I do know that. I don't know enough about it to give, to go deep on it, but it's something that I've suffered within my anxiety and things of that nature. And I know it's a mind state, and I know it's chemicals in your mind that either produces a chemical, or some chemicals are not firing right, and it causes an emotional response. I think, and if I had to sum it up, that's what mental health is to me.
So, Omari, when you think about mental health, what comes to mind with you?
Yeah, I think probably the first thing that comes to mind is, or a couple of things. One is the stigma behind it, and I think that one thing that I hope that we're kind of starting to shift in the Black community is the stigma that it's some personal weakness or some personal defect. A lot of it is there are few living communities in the United States that have undergone more trauma than the Black community. That's generational, hundreds of years of trauma, and I think a lot of that comes out in mental health illness, and it also comes out in the great art and the great culture and the perseverance and all of the other things that as a Black community we hold dear. So yeah, I think those two things, the stigma that I think hopefully we're starting to break down, and also just understanding that the trauma that we all go through as people, and when you talk about Black males, as soon as you're old, know that you're alive. Basically, you're being hunted in some form or fashion in this society. That doesn't matter whether you're in a environment or you're in a challenging environment. Whatever it is, in some form or fashion, you kind of got the crosshairs on you. And there's definitely something that does to the mental state. Yeah, I think that's just a real thing. So yeah, those are a few thoughts to try to keep it brief, but
We're going to go deeper into this conversation, but I just want to hear from each person kind of when you think about mental health, Tate, like what comes to mind when you hear that, you know, back then and or even now? What comes to mind?
What comes to mind when I hear mental health is don't talk about it. First thing that comes to my head, don't talk about it, don't speak about it. You know, things along that line. I've never been in an environment where it was a conducive conversation, right? An acceptable conversation, right? When I think about mental health, I think that the reason I'm here today is because every platform that I'm part of is always trying to build and strengthen the black community, period, everything that I do. So when I think about mental health, the narrative that I want to start thinking when I hear mental health is that we look at mental health the same way we look at physical health, right? Like every beginning of every year, we like, okay, the new year finna come, let me get my physical health together. But we gotta also be worried about our mental physique, right? Because we work more on our physical physique because that's what show, right? But our mental physique don't show. We can hide that in. But it do show up because it shows up in places for, you know, when you're trying to get a job. It shows up in places when you're trying to be successful. It's an indicator of, you know, what's really happening internally. So I think we should exercise and practice for our mental physique as same as we do for our physical. I feel like we should build ourselves up completely. And just as black men, be okay with talking about shit. Things get hard sometimes. You know, things get too difficult. You know, when you're in a position, definitely as these three black men here today, or all the black men here today, actually, we all are growing in our fields. Mm-hmm. And as we grow in our field, the amount of black men that you see around you to help guide you through that, you know, or navigate that career is limited. So until we get to the point where we can talk and be honest about what we feeling, you know, it's always difficult. So when I think of mental health, I think it should be a conversation that we speak about the same way we speak about any other type of health, body, spiritual, whatever. It should be just as open.
You know, that is truly amazing what all three of you guys have said. You know, when I think about mental health and I look at it from before up until now because of what I've learned, you know, a lot of the things that we did, we all learned them in some way, shape, form, or fashion. It was a learned behavior. And even then, it wasn't looked upon as mental health, but a lot of it was because our behavior exemplified what it was, how it was we were thinking. Yeah. And so now that we've gotten older, you know, it's kind of almost like the scripture. When I was a child, I thought, I ate, I did all these things, but now I've become a man, I put away those childish things. But when you think about putting away childish things, that means that you got to get rid of what that was and replace it with something that's greater. And so what we're hoping to do as we continue to grow and have this conversation, we want you to understand, especially for those men who are watching, regardless of whether you're black, white, blue, or green, but especially for those black men, we want you to understand that it is very important that you do things that build and work toward your mental health and your mental capacity, because we want to make sure that you are able to handle the bandwidth that's going to come your way. Like Omari said earlier, I think he said there's like a trap. There's a trap that has your name that's on it. And we want to make sure that you know what that trap looks like and don't get your hand or don't get snared in that trap. I want to ask another question. You know, but Mr. McGee, I want you to answer this question for me. How did being incarcerated affect your mental health, both while you was locked up and or when you got out? How did it affect your mental health? Knowing what you know now, how would you say it affected your mental health?
Well, you know, I went through prison at a very young age. You know, first time I went to prison, I was, you know, just barely 18. You know, so I was super young. You going to prison with grown men who, you know, you're around all kinds of different, you know, crime, criminals or whatever it might be. But, you know, in prison, it's a philosophy of how you present yourself is how you will make it through the day in there. Right? That's so, you know, being somewhat, you know, speaking about things like this could be seeing you as being soft, right? And there, anything that's a soft, anything could really cost you a lot. So you in there and you creating this mind state of building yourself up to be this bear, this wolf, this gorilla, and you conduct yourself like that and you witnessing, you know, different stabbings, different activities that can really be traumatizing. But you might not even know it to be traumatized because it might be familiar to you, or it might be, whichever way. But you going through that process and trying to maintain and survive until you get out. And then when you get out, you out here with no blueprint of how to be successful. And the moment you step out of prison, now it's have a whole contrast, different mind, be productive, communicate well, interact with society, get a good job, and you don't have no blueprints or information on this at all. So that's a major struggle, you know. And you finna say something?
I'm just,
Yeah, so that's
feeling that.
yeah. So that's a major struggle. So for me, it was, you know, I hate to admit this, definitely on camera, but you know, being in professional settings and something might be a light situation, and that prison mentality may come up, and I'm responding with aggression because I don't really know how to resolve this and communicate correctly or professionally. You know what I'm saying? So realistically, it took a lot of processing the time, and you know, a lot of support from a lot of great people.
Yeah.
You know, to kind of show me that, you know, your delivery or your communication might come off wrong in these settings. So for me, that, you know, the transfer between prison and back into society was complicated because I had to unlearn a lot of things that was taught to me inside of there. Wow. If that makes sense.
Wow, that's amazing. So Rob, what was being locked up like? Give our audience a true example of what was being locked up like.
Man.
So as deep as you can go, because everybody's experience is different.
Right.
So, but what was being locked up for you like?
I mean, being locked up, man, is being and come out 1 hour a day with 3 bad meals, the worst meals you can think of, on a continuous basis. That's prison. That's the fluff of prison. Imagine being in a closet, an 11 by 7. I remember when I was in the feds, I made sure I knew what I was coming out to do. I knew I wanted to come out and help young men, reinvent themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And the youth as well. So I counted 7 by 11 in the cell, and it was 3. It's 3 of us in an 11 by 7 cell. You know what I'm saying? And we locked down for 6 months at a time because a stabbing done happened. And you got to wash your clothes in the toilet, the same toilet that, you know what I mean, you got to use the bathroom in. You got certain times of the day that you can get off your bunk because it's divided up by 3. So my shift may be from 7 in the morning to lunchtime. Your shift may be from lunchtime to dinner time, and then the other person's from dinner time to lockdown. I mean, to lights out. You know what I'm saying? And so, and then through that time, man, I'm gonna use the bathroom. Y'all, you know, turn around. And, man, it's humiliating. It's demeaning. It's frustrating. It makes you more angry. You know, and you have to kind of turn yourself into somebody that you really don't want to be. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be that person who walks around angry all day, you know, responding with aggression, like Tay said, in every situation. But in prison, you got to, or you may be seen as weak. You know, people might play you. If I allow you to skip me in the lunch line, then tomorrow somebody else gonna try to do it. You know what I'm saying? So you got to check that. You understand what I'm saying? And so, man, prison was hard, man. You always on your toes, you know, and you can't escape. And so you become, you know what I'm saying? So you adapt if you strong. Or if not, you're going to get swallowed up. So I had to adapt. And with that comes a certain level of, you know, engagement that you particularly don't want to engage in, but you have to in order to survive. Being in there, seeing people not make it home, seeing this person go home in 2 weeks, and you talking to him, like, man, I'm about to get out, go see my kids. And then the next day you wake up and you like, what? Well, old boy at? Oh, you ain't heard what? Yeah, he died last night. You know what I'm saying? Like, that mentally messes with a person. Yeah. You know what I mean? If you're human, another human dying should bother you. Yeah. Real quick, let me kind of take a look. Go ahead, tell us. Man, that's the problem with Instagram, dog. Like, it has desensitized our culture. When you can, back in the day, a dead body, like, I don't care if you in the hood or not. Like, you just didn't see people with their brains blowed out. Yeah. You may hear about it, but to see it down and mow him down and people over there pumping on his chest and blood everywhere. Like, my little girls and them watch that and don't even flinch now. Yeah. Because it's Instagram, they got phones. So it's like, man,
it's different, you know, in the culture that we live in today. You're able to see these things. When I was growing up, you wasn't. So when it happens, it still affected me when I was in prison. Now in our culture, it really don't affect you, man. Prison is a horrible is a horrible place. But again, it's been glorified. It's cool. You get stripes for going to prison. You know what I'm saying? You go in and you come out. People are cheering you on. It's a badge of honor. So whenever it's looked like when it's interpreted as that, you always gonna have an influx of people in and out of prison, especially when it's seeming cool and it's really not. It really affects you mentally.
I mean, that is so powerful. Omari, we want to transition a little bit, and I want you guys to kind of think about what that looks like. You know, how was you able to transition from prison to being and doing what you do right now? What was that transition like? And then give us an example of what it looked like. How was you able to transition into who you are right now? And I want all of you guys to kind of think about that, because for those of you guys don't know, all three of these guys are some very successful people in their own rights in what they're doing right now. So that transition is truly amazing. But I'd like for you to just explain to us, what was that transition like for you early on, and then how is it going right now?
Yeah, definitely. You know, it was challenging in a lot of ways. And one thing that Robert just spoke to of how challenging it is to be there. I mean, just by him like giving that description of, you know, 3 in and then one gets out. It's like by him telling that story. I mean, I could feel my body language tangibly shift just from hearing it. Like it's that embedded in you, because it is I mean, you do turn on a different thing, like from and it's years. You know, some people think about adapting to a situation for a week, or, you know, something gets hectic and there's some fight somewhere, but like this is years of putting on this. I mean, it's a tangible armor. It's like you know how regularly that a healthy person might cry. You might go a ridiculously long time in some of those spaces, and then you might see somebody that, you know, they're crying under the sheet because they don't feel like they can cry. So anyway, just hearing that description, I didn't want to move too quickly without like just sort of stating how powerful that is, to kind of put yourself back into that space, and how it really does shift your demeanor. I know Tay spoke, you know, to the same thing of having to sort of learn to navigate situations without that thing that you kind of have to build up just for it to. And then also the flip side of that is that there's a lot of humanity in there. I mean, there was some great people that looked out for me when I was gone, that made that experience. You know, that I think that were instrumental in helping survive that. But as you spoke to the transition, I think for me it was a lot of grace. I mean, I can't like, you know, you can't overstate how for every 3 people or 4 people of us, you know, hundreds, it goes wrong. Somebody, you know, they get into some little thing that isn't even really their fault, and because you have no room for error, you know, you're right back in there. But for me, a lot of it was grace. Another huge part, I was really tight with my grandmother. The day that I got home, my grandmother passed away, so I got home at 10 o'clock. And so I had one of those experiences where it was just like there's nothing that I would ever allow to kind of to miss something. And Ron knows, I mean, he knows my grandmother. So yeah, there's nothing that I would allow to happen. You know, it kind of gave me some motivation that's sort of from another world, because the person that loved you the most, you missed something. I know we probably all got that story on some form or fashion, something that you missed, you know, something that you weren't there for but that was a big part of it. And then also just I think work ethic, I mean, a lot of it's grace, and I mean, more of it's grace than anything that I did personally, but there was a personal kind of grind and sharpening that I think going through challenging situations puts you through. And every person I know that's been incarcerated, if they make it out and get a shot, they kill it. Like they do great because we're coming out of a circumstance where we're like, hey man, give us one chance, you know. And so I think part of it's that you know, that same steel that could cut you also really sharpens you.
Wow, thank you so much, man. So I wanted you guys to be thinking about that as well, because you know I know what y'all are doing and the impact that you're making right now. But I want you to tell everyone that's listening that have heard that traumatic side of. But let's transition to that other. What you're doing now. What has that transition been like for you, Tay? And you know, tell them about some of the amazing things that you're doing that I know they may not know. But what has it been like for you?
Well, it's like 3 different questions in one for one,
know
bro.
it.
So I don't know which one to answer.
Hey,
but
you
let
do
me
them
throw
all.
a few things out there. One, definitely want to chime in on kind of what Omari said, that, you know, it is a lot of great parts that came from prison as well. You know, unfortunately, because of a lot of the adversity or detriments that impact our community, that a lot of the great, amazing black men happen to still reside in prison. You know, so for me going through prison as a young youth, I was able to meet a lot of amazing people in there. You know, it was a lot of people who kind of taught me how to, you know, conduct myself, you know, how to be more of a professional, how to handle yourself in different type of environments. And some of them tools I was able to convert over and utilize them in a professional setting. So them was tools that I was able to use to succeed. You know, that hunger, that hustle, that commitment, that grit, that determination, that I ain't giving up. You know, I sleep or get rest when I die. Like, you be believing that. You know what I'm saying? So some of those things right there, you know, helped me to be successful. You know, coming out, as you know, the transition was very difficult. Platforms are all platforms that I do as a career, all set to create opportunity and success for young black men. You know, so with that being said, so you got where I came out of prison, and every time I would try to get a job, every application said, do you have a felony or have you committed a crime? And soon as you seen that on the application, you was just depleted. It was over with. You knew that this job was basically saying, you can't come in. You know what I'm saying? So that definitely was, you know, very hard and very difficult to see that, because you was like, if I'm trying to do the right thing, then where is my chance or my forgiveness or my opportunity? If the judge sentenced me to 8 years and I did my time, so why am I still dealing with some of the consequences or repercussion of a crime I did years ago? So one thing about my success that I would say was one of the biggest, greatest thing is going from that, you know, platform or that place where being so incarcerated to now I go and be a mentor to some of the people in the same places of incarceration. The biggest thing I ever did to me, which others might disagree, but to me was, now my position as being a director, I was able to write the job description on what it takes to get hired at a national organization. And one of the first things I did is where it said, usually would say, have you been committed of a crime? Let's get that up out of there. We're gonna change that a little bit, because I wanted young Tay to see that application and say, I can get a job there. I can be like Mr. Tay. So, you know, that was one of my greatest success, man, to be on the other side writing what it takes to get this job. So, yeah, that's what I say. I hope I answered some of your questions.
Oh, you did. You went in, man. So Rob, like the same thing. I kind of, you know, I was going to go to another question, but I want us all to kind of just share what that transition has been like for you, coming from what you just got through telling us to the amazing guy that we all know right now. What?
You know, man, when I left prison, I knew while I was there, I knew I didn't want to return. I knew I didn't want to leave my kids out here for another man to raise. And so I devised a plan while I was there. And once I was returned, then I implemented it. It was hard. It wasn't easy. I'm still currently implementing that plan, but experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. And so I utilized that experience to strengthen me. You know, I could have grew bitter because of the circumstances of my incarceration. I could have did a lot of things, but I just chose to to be better once released. You know, when I got out, I had a business, but I couldn't even work for it. You know what I'm saying? I had to go get a job. I had to go, and God used this. I'm telling you, listen, I could have went and worked for my company, but the stipulations from federal release says that you have to stay in a halfway house and you can't work for yourself. And so I had to go do bus tables. Wow. I had to go bus tables. So here I go being this rich cat to now I'm busting tables and serving people and cleaning tables and pouring water and bringing hot bread to tables. Like it was a shock. Like that was God's way of humbling me. But it created attributes, you know what I mean, that added to my character, right? And because of that, I was able to a year later leave and start my company, you know. And like Tay said, it was hard. I couldn't get no place I didn't have no license, no car. I didn't have nothing. I have no credit. I didn't have nothing. You know, the reason I left is because they gave me a 10-cent raise. Here I am married with kids. I'm like, what I'm going to do with 10 cents? Oh, wow. 2 weeks later, I was gone. I didn't even finish my 2 weeks notice because that showed me this is not for me, right? But understand, those are some of the barriers that keep people like me and Tay and Mara recidivating, right? Because once you get out, you promise that, okay, you've paid your debt to society, you deserve a second chance, but a second chance really ain't given. That's why people don't understand the struggle and the fight for criminal justice reform. You understand what I'm saying? When you trying to feed your kids and you trying to do it, but a second chance really ain't given. That's why people don't understand the struggle and the fight for criminal justice the way that they say you should do it, which is find a job, but you can't find gainful employment. You can't find work enough to be able to pay your bills and be productive. So what do? Survival of the fittest. You go back to what you're used to, right? And then when you go and fill out an application to try to find housing, and they tell you we don't accept felons. So what I'm supposed to do? Stay on the street and fight for scraps? Yeah. But I done paid my debt to society. That's an issue. That's a conflict of interest, right? And so the transition has been rough. I've been fighting for equitable opportunities for felons since I touched down. I'm fighting now. I've actually walked through every door of reentry, from pardons, from a governor's pardon to get my rights restored, to vote, to showing people that felons can get out and be successful. Like I kind of been the poster child in that area, right? I hire felons, left all my staff are felons. All my staff are felons. Wow. When people get out of prison, they say, call Rob, he gonna give you a chance. You know, that's what I do. I utilize that experience to get out, to be productive, and to show people who's getting out that they can be successful. And I'm still fighting right now. I'm talking about to this second. Wow. I'm still trying to get a pardon in order to get my life back to normal, the way it should be.
Wow, you know, that's amazing. When you think about transition, you find that it is very important when you get out here, because you're going to have those obstacles. There are traps that are set that has your name on it. Those are the truth, and that's what we just got through hearing. But what that's telling us is you don't have to be the one to put your hand in that trap. You can do something different. You know, my story is a little bit different when you think about that, because one of the things that I did more than anything was I knew without a doubt that if I didn't change the way I thought, this was going to be a permanent place for me to stay, and that would have been in prison. And so I worked as much as I possibly could to change my mind. And I'm hoping that what we're talking about tonight, as everybody has shared here, that we can help you see for yourself that if you start the process of changing your mind, anything is possible in time. It's a very, very, very serious things. Forgetting those things that are behind and reaching forward for those things that are before you. But you got to start by changing the way you think about those things, because it's our thinking is what has led us continually down that path. And we are, you know, on the brinks of helping as many people as possible see and understand that the reflection that they see in the mirror is a very important reflection. We're going to make absolutely sure that you understand that. We only have a couple more minutes, y'all. But I just want us to know that we are serious about this thing called mental health. And I want to share a quick thought, because we got about 1 minute. There was two Buddhist monks that was walking down this muddy road, and they ran across this lady who was having a real tough time crossing the road. And one of the monks went and picked her up and brought her across the road. And they walked along their way very quietly. And some 3 or 4 hours later, the one monk said to the other, "Why did you pick that lady up and carry her across the road?" The one looked at the other and said, "I put her down hours ago. Are you still carrying her?" Some people that's in your life are going to continue to bring up your past. And they're going to continue to try and pull you back to that space. But you picked her up and carried her across the road hours ago, and you just made him understand that there is the past. The past is the past. You are in the here and the now, and the future is ever so bright. Go for it. Don't stop. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good. Let's say I got a couple.
Well, okay. Well, look.
I wanna
Okay.
add something to it.
All right. We got. I'm gonna let each one of the guys share with us. I thought we was queuing out, and look, I just gave y'all the cue, but now we're gonna let each one of the guys. They're gonna take a couple minutes and close us out. I'll start with Rob, then we'll go to Amara and Tay. You take us home with sharing something as we go forward. Go for it, Rob.
So I want to leave whoever's listening, the audience, and everybody with this. We put re-entry and getting out and fighting for one's life is, psychologically draining, and it has an effect on a lot of African American and brown people in this country. You told that once you pay your debt to society, you can get out and be successful. That's not the truth. That can play on anybody's emotions, right? And it will cause someone to react in a way that they really don't want to react. And so with the organization that I'm starting, it's called the Dream Initiative, Decreasing Recidivism Through Education and Mentorship. Our focus is not on recidivism, but on desistance, discovering desistance. And that's one's ability to get out and to re-enter successfully. And so I just want us to focus more on desistance instead of recidivism, because one's ability to change is dependent upon the community, the people we vote into office, and the laws and policies they put forth that govern and help people that's returning, right? We could want change and as much as we want, but until we get laws and policies that are moving in that direction, we will never truly see any success from returning citizens. And that psychologically can have a massive effect on someone who's trying to get out and really change their life. Because I promise you, majority of the people that walk out of them gates do not want to go back. But when you put them in a situation where they have no choice but to return to criminal lifestyle, what do you expect? So I want us to for that, I want to leave y'all with that. Just think on that.
Okay, y'all, we're gonna continue. We actually have about 7 more minutes that we have left. So I kind of miscued, but hey, we're still here. So in that miscue, what I want to do though, I really want to ask this question, because this has been a question. I know that we've had a few people that ask this question online and what have you. I want to ask a couple of questions about politics and this election that we just had. I think it's really important, and it's imperative for us to have this conversation, especially for black men. Just like Rob just, when we choose someone that really doesn't represent us, we really have to make absolutely sure coming from. So I'm going to ask this question, and then this is, and I'll ask it to you, Rob, and then you guys can kind of go along. People. I've had a number of folks that have asked us about. Some of them seen you on TV, and they noticed that you had publicly endorsed Donald Trump. And I just want you to just express to us, because I know Rob, but I would, if you wouldn't mind, just share what that experience has been like for you.
Well, the moment I publicly and just basically said I was voting for Donald Trump, I've kind of received a lot of backlash from the community. A lot of people, kind of, it's been a crazy month, but I'm built for it, and it's made me a better leader, and I still stand on what I said, because the biggest thing about me is that I'm gonna own what I said. Yes, I did publicly say I was gonna vote for Donald Trump. I did, but the reason I did it is because of the reason that I just expressed. My main focus is for returning citizens. It's for equitable opportunity for returning citizens. That's the lane I'm in. My whole life, God has wrapped my whole life around that particular topic. Everything that I do revolves around helping those, getting out, pick up the pieces to their life. I mean, nobody understands what it's like to walk in the shoes of Robert Sherrill. To have people calling you, begging you, men, young men, old men, 30 and up, 17, 18 years old, begging for an opportunity for a job, writing letters to people's POs, showing up to people's parole dates to get them out. Nobody knows. I spend majority of my life doing that, trying to help people pick up their pieces, and me, myself. So I expect people to vote their interest, all right? And so to disown me, a Nashvilleian who's done so much in this community because I said I was going to vote for Donald Trump publicly is absurd to me. The same person that go lead a march, the same person that gives back through his nonprofit programs, the same person that create jobs in the community for people who can't get jobs, the same person who write checks whenever somebody reach out, anything for the community. I stand for the community. I'm that, and I will continue. But at the end of the day, I can't take back what I did because it was beneficial for me. So for once, I chose me. Yeah. Did I vote for him? No, I didn't. I voted Democrat. I will not publicly. Let's just be real. Now the election is over. I'm trying to get a pardon. Let's just be real. I want y'all to take this. I want y'all to take this. I voted because I'm trying to get a pardon. That's why I did it. I publicly did it. It was a chess move. I'm trying to get a pardon from the man, so I felt if I stroke his ego, he'll pardon me. Hey, y'all want to shoot me for that? Then go ahead, get to shooting. But that's the real. But when I went in that box, I voted for Biden. He ain't no better though. So I want us to quit thinking that. Man, listen. Y'all gotta let me talk. Quit. Listen. Democrats, Republicans, presidents don't run the country. Our lives are affected by local elections. Yeah. The state reps and all of them, they're the one that pass laws and policies that really govern our life. So it's those senators and those people in the House and the Senate who we need to worry about. The president is just a puppet. He's the commander-in-chief, meaning he runs the army. That's his main thing. He does little things, but the Senate and the House run everything, right? Yeah. And so for years, black people have Democrat. But let me tell you something. I've been to Capitol Hill several times. Nobody knows. I done been to Washington, D.C. I know how business is done. Politics ain't done. You see one thing on TV, that ain't how politics is done. The biggest checkbook wins. I don't care Democrat or Republican. The biggest checkbook wins. And none of them got our best interests at heart. It's only what we do locally with nonprofits, people like Tate, people like Ron, people like the council. Those are the things, and us coming together is going to change our circumstances in our community. So forgive me. It was hurtful to see the darts that was thrown, but at the end of the day, I'm built for it. It was a chess move. If I had to do it over again, I'd do it over again. Because for once in my life, I chose to do something that was beneficial for me. And that's what it boils down to.
Yeah. That's what's up, Rob, man. We appreciate that, man, because one of the things about life is keeping it real. When you do keep it real, what ends up being the best thing is when you look in the mirror, that's who has to be the one that accepts the realness that you are. You don't have anything to prove to anyone, and I appreciate that realness, brother. And Brother Omari, we got a little bit of time. I kind of got ahead of myself. So can you just kind of, share with us as we continue to kind of close out, what are your thoughts, politically, or just as we close out about this thing called mental health and what have you going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton of thoughts politically. I think that I appreciate what Rob said. I I don't I wouldn't agree with the vote, and it's one of those situations where I think in our community the compassion should, at least the way that I choose to move is, I'm gonna extend the compassion to us first. Um, I felt like that, and I'm sure these are completely different situations. I never heard about the issue with Rob, so I didn't know that was even going on. But I do remember the issue with Kanye, and I felt the same way. I said, I don't agree with it, and if I'm riding with him before, then this can't be enough to, yeah, this can't be enough to make me jump ship now. If there's enough things that I appreciate about someone, then one thing that I don't, or that I disagree with is and I think that as far as politics go, that's something that we should, at least that I would choose to really be mindful of, are the people, the people's intentions of whatever way that they're voting. I think that there's a lot of passes that get given to people outside of our community. Who knows who the CEO of HCA, but I got a feeling that all the people that people weren't, this is just a random example, but there's a lot of people outside of the Black community that I feel like sometimes will let slide on thinking a different way, and we'll still support them, and we'll be a little quick to throw out our own. So that's just my response to that specific issue. Mental health is 100% a real thing. It's something that I'm grateful to be amongst some other brothers that are talking about it, thinking about it. One thing I know about everybody on this panel is we're all leaders. I mean, I've worked with Ron and Tay closely, and I think that's the one thing that I know, both of you, but I'm kind of just gonna speak on Tay because he was a little slow to give himself he's not gonna hype himself up, but that leadership of being able to stand in a room and command attention and say, like, I don't care what you think is cool, this is what's me, and this is it is the real program. The reason that people can lead a program called the real program is that whether you agree or disagree, that's real to them, and that's valuable. So this did a lot for me, just to be amongst you brothers. I hope that the people watching got something out of it, but if it was just the four of us, then this gave me some energy to take in the next week, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mamari. Hey, so look, guys. I know we had said we was going to give everybody a chance, but I'm being queued up and saying that we are just about out of time. And look, we're going. No, we got it. Come on, don't go nowhere. Don't go nowhere, bud. No. So we gonna give Tay 30 seconds. So we're gonna give Tay a couple that you look. Look, y'all have no idea. This is one of the guys I truly love, man. He has been a warrior out here on the front line, and I want to give him that opportunity, man, to really let people know, man, how this thing that's called mental health that we have seen firsthand on the front line with the young people that we have worked with over these last 6 or so years together. Real quick, Tay, share with us what this has meant to you, this gathering here, and anything that you can with us, please.
Yeah, I'm kind of thrown off something serious right now. Like, I have no idea what to say. Shit. Excuse me for cussing. Yeah. So, kind of, the conversation that's been going on, Rob is a major figure in the community. Yeah. Major. A captain in the community. He's done things that, realistically, most of us ain't even done yet. So his purview, his perspective is going to be totally different than ours. Do I agree with voting Trump? Absolutely not. Period. Hands down. And the reason why I got so much smoke with Trump is just, it's too many things going on in our community with the protests and so on and so on that bothers me. Being a black man or being a black period, constantly watching on TV all the beatings, killing, shootings, and so on. It's like watching your team constantly losing. Yeah. You know, watching us be, dehumanized, devalued, unappreciated. It makes you feel like, by nature, the jersey that you wear, the black skin, that you part of the losing team. And that's totally not the case. You going into different locations and, places, feeling like you got on the losing team, and then the opposing team, by nature, you strong, powerful, resilient. But because we're playing the game that they created, because we're playing the game that they had hundreds and hundreds of years to practice before we even know a game was coming up, because they had hundreds and hundreds of years to train before we even know to prepare. By the time we got woke and started paying attention, by the time the game started, we was miles behind the start line. Or they was already up 100 points in the game, if that makes sense. And so all that to say, I can go on and on, man, but no, I absolutely don't support Trump at all. As far as Biden, I'm riding with Rob on that. I don't feel like none of them wake up in the morning and say, how can I support Tay McGee? And since they don't think about me in the morning, I don't think about them in the morning, to be honest. Amen. And what I will say on mic and clear, I can care less who Rob vote for. He's a captain out here. He do amazing work. He stays supportive of so many different programs. So just because we have different views, different opinions, or we strategize on our chess game a little different, don't mean now I'm no longer, associated with him or ride with him. So I support him on whatever he do. Don't mean I'm always going to agree. So it's still my guy. Appreciate, y'all giving me this opportunity. And next time I come out here, Rob, and you say leave Tay part out, we gonna all have smoke and tear some cameras and mics up in this boy. I told you I just got